What is going on? Rewind Mike here. Today I'm going to talk about the Super Retro-Cade from Retro-Bit. So Retro-Bit reached out to me and asked if I wanted to beta test this, so for the past month I've put it through the paces. What is the Super Retro-Cade? Well, it's a plug-and-play console that comes with a ton of arcade classics, some that never had a home release. Now you couple that with some of my favorite console games like Mega Man and Final Fight and you might just have my interest. There are some well-known publishers like Capcom, Data East, Technos, and even games coming from IRAM, all companies with legacies rooted by their arcade prowess. This device is going to cost around $60. The package is going to include the console, 2 controllers, HDMI cable, and the power cord. The Super Retro-Cade is slated for a holiday release, so I assume that's before year's end. In this video, I'm going to do shorthand reviews of each game that is currently available, so consider this a part 1. I honestly think this will be the best way for me to demo this console for you. See it all for yourself, not to mention, I figured out how to run my own ROMs. So I'll inform you of that later in the video, but first I want to talk about its intended use. Let's start with the user interface. Each game is displayed with a still shot of its opening screen. Well, I think it's pretty basic, but also very nostalgic. This is what we would see before starting an adventure into another world. Some of them are very iconic, so it's not the worst thing really. Clicking on a game will bring up a menu. Here we get a little info on each game. It tells you the genre, the company that published it, what console it was for, and the button layout for said game. For ease of access, you can load your save without booting up a game or just add it to your favorite list. Pressing the select button over a game allows you to customize some of the settings and also change the button layout. Honestly, I only use this menu to fix the aspect ratio from stretched to normal. My only problem here is that you need to do it for each game. It's not a global setting. Thankfully, it only takes a second to do. They nailed the filter options here. Alphabetical, by publisher, genre, system, or you could even just go right to your favorite list. It's easy and straight to the point. Alright, let's jump into the game list. As you can see, Super Retro-Cade is packed with titles that either sapped up all your quarters or claimed many a late night. I already showed you Mega Man and Final Fight, so let's cross those off the list now. We still have quite a bit to cover though, as you can see. I'll begin with 3 games that didn't translate well to the controllers, this way we can kinda end on a sweet note. So, Heavy Barrel, Forgotten Worlds, and Midnight Resistance all utilize a special joystick that rotates in some sort of way. To replace this, rotation is set to the L and R buttons, so I found myself having a hard time spinning in the right direction that I wanted to go. Now, they were still sort of playable, with Forgotten Worlds being the most forgiving in this twisting joystick trilogy. Like shooters? Well, this console is packed with them, and not just tripe. There's classics like Capcom's 1942, 1943, and even legendary Wings. We've got other lesser known shooters as well, such as XX's and Varth Operation Thunderstorm. I never actually played these two before, but Capcom made them, and that really shows with their smooth gameplay. Then we have side-scrolling shooters. Cobra Command was another game I didn't even know about. The gameplay is hectic as you try to manage air and ground troops. I honestly see myself coming back to this one a lot. Sidearms is a 2-way side-scrolling shooter? Yeah, I'm calling it that. What you see here is what you get. Now Section Z kind of mirrors this game, but you have to navigate through tubes and kind of find your way around through the stages. I compare it to like Metroid. It's the Metroid of shooters, if that makes any sense. Check this one out. It's underrated as hell. Just use a guide for it. It's one of those NES games. The last side-scrolling shooter is off the rails. Boogie Wings is a real gem. You fly this single-engine plane that has a hook attached to it. So basically, it allows you to pick up all sorts of things and just kind of fling them around the screen. It's destructive, and I can dig it. Another cool function was the faster you mash the shoot button, your plane literally starts to spew lightning bolts from it. It's crazy. I had a lot of fun playing it. The next 4 games are of the vertical scrolling run-and-gun variety. Commando has you running through the jungle battling a nameless army. And Gunsmoke is a game that I'm really bad at. Don't hate, these games are not meant to be mastered overnight. Mercs and Mercs are very much the same game. One was on the arcade with the port being released on the Genesis. Amazing games in their own right, but they are so similar. The port was handled with care, and I can't help but seeing this as a bad addition. That's just at face value, mind you. I didn't dig through all of the games, so I don't know if there's any variation in the stages. And now for the platform action games. We're gonna start off with Bad Dudes on the NES and Bad Dudes Arcade. Now, I don't really count these games as beat 'em ups. Beat 'em ups kinda hold you back and force you to duke it out with everyone on the screen. If you consider this a beat 'em up, then Ninja Gaiden is also a beat 'em up. Bionic Commando NES, Strider NES, Bionic Commando Arcade, and Strider for the arcade. These are all different sides of a coin. The arcade games are pretty much straightforward action, but the NES ports are full of adventure that have you backtracking through the stages and collecting items. We also get the absolute best ports of Ghouls and Ghosts along with Ghosts and Goblins. The addition of Super Ghouls and Ghosts brings together the series that people love to hate and hate to love. There's hours of gameplay with these titles alone. Then we get into the unique titles, like 4 of the Joe and Matt games, and the unofficial SNES follow-up, Congo's Capers. These games are a little rough around the edges, but I still have fun playing them. Codename Viper and Secret Agent are very similar. They're both action platformers which are best approached slow and methodically. If you've played Rolling Thunder, then you kinda know what's going on here. Next we have the simplistic Sun and the oddly addicting Buggy Popper. Yeah, I couldn't stop playing this game for some reason. It's not even great, but there was something that kept me engaged in its gameplay. For the life of me, I don't understand why they didn't use the arcade version of Trojan. The NES game is still a good challenge, but why? Honestly, if you want another challenge, try playing Street Fighter 2010. This game is hard as nails, but leaves you feeling satisfied. And now we come to the cream of the crop. These next 2 games are highly suggested by me! Mega Twins, or Cheeky Cheeky Boys for you Genesis enthusiasts. This is a real arcade platformer. It's got your collectible coins, pits with moving platforms, health bar, and it's even got a live system. The game's look is really friendly and the level of polish makes this one a real gem. And now the culmination of Capcom's arcade development. 3 Wonders is just that, 3 wonderful games. Each of them is a different genre. Midnight Wanderers is a Ghost and Goblin style game right to the core. Enemies spawn continuously as you try to push through the stage and defeat a boss. Chariot is the exciting shooter of the 3 Wonders. It's set in the same universe as Midnight Wanderers actually. The mechanics are very typical of what you see from games in the shoot 'em up genre. You mash the shoot button until there is nothing left on the screen. And here's the freak misfit of the collection. It's called Don't Pull. In a nutshell, it's a puzzle game that has you pushing blocks around a grid-like area in order to crush enemies to death. Now that we've talked about the platformers and shooters, let's use this as a segue into the rest of the library, starting with the puzzle games. Pirate Ship Higemaru is kind of like Don't Pull, but you pick up the barrels and chuck them at dirty pirates. This is another fun arcade game that has a sequel on the Famicom. Next up, 3 magical drop games. 1 for the arcade and the other 2 are for the SNES. These are very engaging if you're playing with a friend. The goal is to match colored bubbles and try to knock out the other player. Additionally, there is 1 single RPG, Dark Lord. Certainly a strange addition, but if you like RPGs, there you go. And for the last 2 puzzle games, we have the NES port of Burger Time, which is arguably one of my favorite single-screen games. Then we see Super Burger Time. Oh man, I didn't even know about this game. It's very fast-paced, and so is this next classic. Wizard Fire scratches that good old-fashioned hack-and-slash fantasy itch. This is something I've played with a friend many times in the past. There's a few different characters to keep the game interesting and boss fights to help expand on that enjoyment. Captain Commando is an iconic piece of Capcom history. Sadly, he's tucked away in the shame corner nowadays. Not a great beat 'em up and a bit vanilla for my taste, but damn is it funny to thrash around as a baby. Next we have Renegade. This game was actually at the forefront of beat 'em ups. It's the title that laid the foundation for a generation of follow-ups like Double Dragon. This quarter muncher was a favorite of mine growing up, truly an archetype for the genre, but that status was lost with the release of Double Dragon 3. This game aged horribly. It's truly an archetype for the pay-to-play motto. Armored Warriors' claim to fame is the ability to upgrade your mech with the parts of downed enemies, another game that's better with friends. Then we have the highly sought after Final Fight 2, 3, and Mighty Final Fight. While I don't care much for the second game, 3 and Mighty Final Fight have just enough variation in moves that it keeps them from becoming bland. My personal favorite beat 'em up on the Super Retro-Cade is Combat Tribes. This is a hot-blooded game with some serious ass-kicking involved. The sprites are on the comical side, but the gameplay is satisfying. There's nothing like bashing two skulls together for the ultimate finishing move. My buddy Nefarious West actually reviewed this game, if you guys like to know more. Now we're winding down, just a few more games. The second is a game called Mutant Fighter, which is actually more of a wrestling game with giant monsters. Not horrible by any means. And for sports, we have Side Pocket and Super Side Pocket. If you enjoy playing pool with a controller, then these games are for you. Not my taste though, I'd rather hold a cue and really play. Same thing with Super Birdie Rush. It's a golf game and something I'd rather do in real life. But the inclusion of Super Dodgeball is very welcome. It's a bit harder to get 12 people together and have them throw a rubber ball at each other these days. At least with pool and golf you can still enjoy them solo. There you have it, all the games available at the time of this recording, but there is something extra to be had. I found a way to fire up a plethora of ROMs that I have and they all worked fine. So, here's a list of those games I tested. Since there was a huge lack of fighters, I wanted to add a few more, so I went ahead and added Street Fighter Alpha 2, Street Fighter Alpha 3, Marvel Superheroes, Marvel vs. Street Fighter, and Marvel vs. Capcom, and I'm happy to say that they all performed flawlessly. Finally, I can have those arcade perfect games at home on my TV. For the beat 'em up genre, I wanted to test some heavy hitters, so I went ahead and started up Cadillacs and Dinosaurs, The Simpsons, Battletoads, and Alien vs. Predator. These are top tier when it comes to arcade classics, and people clamor for them day to day. Willow is another game people either remember fondly or never had a chance to play. It works on the Super Retro-Cade and is 100% worth checking out. One of the best arcade platformers out there. Feel like getting really nostalgic? Well, I tested a handful of single-screen arcade titles. Donkey Kong 3, Frogger, Galaga, Gauntlet 2, Gain Ground, and Pac-Man were just a few I tried, and they all worked fine. Naturally, the NES, SNES, and Genesis games work. So do Game Boy games. This little baby does quite a bit outside of the intended use. It also adds more of a reason to pick up the Super Retro-Cade if it's something you're in the market for. In my month of gameplay, the Super Retro-Cade not only lived up to the hype, it performed just how I wanted. To load up your ROMs, just simply make a folder called Retro Bit Games, just like this. And then jam pack it with digital goodness and pop that baby into the SD slot. It's that easy to do. Anyway, let me know what you think about the Super Retro-Cade. If you have any questions, just ask and I'll answer what I can. Once the final unit comes out, I'll do an unboxing and show off the rest of the newly added games. Until then, I have a ton of other videos you can check out. And don't forget to hit that like button, it helps out more than you think. And if you like what I'm doing, then consider supporting my videos through Patreon. It would allow me to bring you more product reviews like this and improve the channel. Anyway, thanks for watching.